Hello, it's Nikolai. I am going to just record this video to complement the webpage on Notion, which outlines some of the information that you need to know as a UK host before arrival and after arrival. I will spend most of the time concentrating on after arrival, since there are so many families that have already arrived. So just to quickly run through before arrivals, what I would suggest you do is prepare a bit of a family rules. And this is going to cover your routines as a family, your choices of food across all meal types, what your work schedule is, what sports or hobbies that you follow. This is so that the Ukrainian family can get to know you a little bit quicker and avoid ambiguity and anxiousness for them of not really knowing how things are supposed to work. If you've got kids coming between 2 and 16 years old, please start to make inquiries for school or nursery availability. And look out for your council emails with DBS and housing inspection requests. Join local support groups and ask for kids and toddler equipment if you've got those coming. There is a really important email that will come from council, which is a welcome email, and it's got some information that you need to read in it, but it's also asks for your bank account so that you can get paid the £350 from government. It is your local council who actually gives that to you. After arrival, there's quite a few things, there's quite a few steps. These steps are laid out in roughly a step-by-step way so you can follow them. But one thing I wanted you to do is assure your new guests, use this list if you want, but tell them that you're going to tell them what to do at each step. That's one of their biggest fears. And show this list. Show them your family rules. And present them to that. Don't be tempted to skip this, even if the first couple of days go really, really well together. That'll be useful to set you up for the next few weeks and months. And one thing I would suggest is, especially if you've got kids, is set a time that is adult only time, where the family need to either go to their room or the kids need to be in bed. And especially appropriate if you've got kids and they've got bedtimes. Generally, the Ukrainian families have slightly later everything compared to us. Getting up in the morning, their meal times, and also obviously bedtime. And so there will be conflicts with your children if they're in bed by 8 and your Ukrainian family kids of a similar age are still running around at 9:30 at night. Then have a conversation about food. Here, this is really important. Ukrainians don't share the same diet as us, and their food's a lot simpler. It is also reflective of what's available in the country. So chicken, potatoes, root vegetables, fish are very, very popular. Eggs in the morning are popular. If you can keep a supply of eggs and for breakfast, oats, especially if you've got kids, milk, toast, fruit, things like bananas, in supply, that would be really great. Just to give you an idea, the family that we host here, we always make bread, margarine, some spreads. Strawberry jam is a popular favorite. Oats, raisins, available, and that's something that we've committed to supplying as part of how the government give us some money towards as a thank you. Next thing to sort is that define whether food is something that you or the household are providing. My view with our family is that we don't provide any lunch. We don't provide the lunch things, and we don't make lunch together. Quite often, the Ukrainians will make soup. They just call it soup for lunch, various types. And then figure out dinner. There's no easy answer to this, but obviously food preferences are something to go through. But I can only suggest what we did, which is say for 4 nights a week, we will provide food and we'll cook. Quite often the Ukrainians help. For 1 night a week, which is Sunday nights, we don't cook. There is any food available. They can take whatever they like, but we don't cook. We don't plan on having dinner together. It's a total make it up on the night. And then for the other 2 nights, one of those nights, we just kind of make it up. We all agree that we're never going to know what's for dinner that night. And the other one, the Ukrainians make us dinner. And they provide the food. And it's just a great way for them to give back. You need to, once your guests arrive, you need to email their local Ukraine team to confirm arrival. That will trigger a visit from council where £200 will be distributed per person, which is a grant. It does not need to be paid back. An ID check will be done, and their welfare will be checked. And if in some areas, quite often food banks are providing a box. Vodafone, so SIM cards. Vodafone is the network that most people ask for simply because Vodafone is a big network in Ukraine. 302 and EE they've never heard of. And so despite the fact that all will give free calls back to Ukraine, Vodafone is the one that's been asked for. Hopefully your local support group will be able to provide you with SIM cards. Banking needs to be next. This is HSBC, Lloyds or NatWest on the high street. Those are the banks that will allow them to open a bank account and use you as the host as the ID check for address. I live in Buckinghamshire, and Bucks Council now will provide a letter confirming the address of the host, which is making things a lot easier. So please do ask your council or council liaison officer for that. The Universal Credit application is the next important thing to do. Yes, it's online. Don't bother walking to the job centre and ask to start the process. They'll just tell you to go home and go online. At the end of the application, it'll do an ID check. Select that you don't have the ID that it asks for, and it'll then tell you, we'll call you to do an ID check. They don't call you, but about 2 days later, log back into the journal and the to-do list inside the Universal Credit application, and it will tell you what time and date to be at your local job centre. Weekly appointments are not unusual, so don't be shocked unless parents have got young children, in which case it'll be 3 monthly, and the job centre will not let you join those meetings. They consider them quite private. Please don't argue with them. The Universal Credit application form will trigger a national insurance registration. That is a text message that will be sent to your guests about a week after that first job centre interview. And click on that link from that text message and then complete the form. It is different to Googling register for national insurance and starting from scratch. Please don't do that. Doctor and dentist registrations are really important. Now, the other one is prescriptions are free when health services are needed, and eye tests are also free. Please organise them. What I found is that dentists and eye tests are the two most important things because there's quite often work that needs to be done. The next is a bunch of immigration admin. So if your guests have arrived on a biometric passport or an international passport, their BRP or British Residence Permit, is an application that needs to be made online, and it has to be completed within 6 months. Don't leave this till last minute, please. If your guests arrive with no biometric passport, so they had an ID card or a domestic Ukraine passport, you need to now collect that BRP at Broadway Post Office in central London. When visa applications were first done, it always specified the local post office for collection, but it turns out that's not where BRPs have been sent. Your guests are allowed to leave the UK for up to 2 weeks at a time, and that really is a Universal Credit requirement, which is the 2-week limit. But they're welcome to go back to Ukraine. I've already had families where it's been family back in Ukraine that's funded a ticket to come and visit. English lessons are really crucial. Ask your local support group or your council liaison officer for the details to get that started. This is important because it counts as a job for Universal Credit and helps get the job officers off your back. Clothing audits, please do them, especially for kids. Don't forget that the war started in February. It's now June. Most kids have grown out of their shoes and many of their clothes. So please either use some of the funding that you've been given or crowdfund some support to get a few crucial items of clothing. Charity shops are your friend. School places need to be confirmed, and where necessary, where a uniform is needed, please ask council, ask support groups what grants are available, including the school themselves. Everyone Active is a national gym chain, and they will offer Ukrainians 12 months free membership, so please take them to a gym and get that as soon as possible. Most will not have a swimming costume for the pools, but they love water in the pools. The cheapest place to find swimming costumes is quite often actually the sales at the leisure centres. Otherwise, anywhere that you would go and find a swimming costume, please help them to source that. Bus routes. This might be something that you are not that familiar with, but please look up where the buses go, where they go from, and show them on maps. Please go on the first journey with them and show them how to pay, etc. Supermarkets, what are nearby your home? Please write out the names and indicate the price points with like little pound signs, so they know what those price points are. Please obviously take your Ukrainian guests to the supermarket, show them how to get there on their own steam. Hopefully there are buses or it's walkable. Please, it goes without saying, please help your guests get to every Ukrainian meetup that is going on. Help them meet other Ukrainians. It is good for mental health. It is just good to also for some stimulation, and usually the cake is really good. Please explain how emergency services work, the fact that it's 999, the fact that 111 exists in the UK. Please outline some of the scenarios for which you call 999 under emergency, and that you can access Coast Guard, especially if you're by the coast, but police, ambulance and fire, and generally what happens if you have to make that call. Bicycles are a very popular way of getting about in Ukraine, and so many will be happy to hear that there are bicycles available. If you are going to supply or help source a bicycle, please ensure that lights and helmets are provided. You may get pets. Pets are a part of the family for Ukrainians, so much more so than here and even the US. But if the pet comes home with their Ukrainian guests straight away, it's most likely that they've done so under a home isolation agreement. Please do not break this. It is only 30 days usually, but that means no contact. Those pets cannot go out. Pet charities we have found locally are very welcoming and will provide food and veterinary support if you ask. Gardening, if you've got a little bit of green space, please encourage gardening, even just cutting the lawn or planting vegetables. It's therapeutic and it's a great distraction and a popular part of life in Ukraine. Please ask your guests if they are religious, and if so, help them to reach a church or mosque or wherever it is that they want to go. There are not many Ukrainian Orthodox churches in the UK, but in West London there is one. But please don't confuse a Ukrainian Orthodox church with a Russian Orthodox church. Next big one, and almost to finish off, working. Most Ukrainians really want to work. Please help them find jobs. It's part of the requirements for universal credit, but it's also a great stimulation. Cleaning is obviously where no English is spoken, is kind of the obvious job that can be done without an issue. If your guests are happy to clean, the Made to Clean service, which is written in the link which I've provided, take people on and will list their profiles. Then the Universal Credit Journal, it does ask every week for details of what jobs have been applied for, what interviews have taken place, or what work has actually been found. Please keep reminding your guests that they need to keep that up to date and log in with them the first few times to get that up and running. And lastly, communicating. Use Google Translate Voice. And I just encourage you to ask them to repeat what has been shared in English, just to help with their learning. So that's all that I wanted to share. Thank you so much for listening. This session has been just under 15 minutes. I hope it's been useful. But thanks very much. Cheers.